everybody. And welcome back to Tea and a Butty podcast with me, Dominic.
And me, Erica.
And we're here to talk about kicking off our culture series here. A little bit of culture for you people. And this episode's all about travel.
Yes.
And not just between the UK and America, but actual people who travel in the UK and
America.
And America. Yes, everybody. So here we go.
Yeah, so we just wanted to talk about the traveling culture.
Yeah.
That is really prevalent in Britain, especially.
It's pretty prevalent, yeah, because we're a small island. It's
Right.
like everybody wants to leave it. You know, and it's like much easier to leave it because you're right next to the European continent and everything. So, and statistics say that around 76% of people in Britain,
according to Forbes,
and other places as well, 76% of people own a passport or have a passport.
that's a lot.
And that's a lot. That's
3/4 of the population.
Yeah, I mean, only
That's
like
crazy.
15% of people or 17% or whatever would say.
Right, and I wonder if those are kids, maybe?
Maybe. I mean, it could be, or it's just people who just like very homebody.
Yeah.
You know, they've never left their little town or village and they have no desire to go. Actually, I did know one person who didn't have a passport in Britain.
Really?
Yeah. His name was,
Bob.
His name was Bob. If Bob's listening, I hope you got your passport, mate. That's all I can say.
No, but you and I talked about this years ago, when we were kind of first like getting to know each other.
I was surprised, yeah.
Because I had just gotten my passport just before I came over there for the first time.
Yeah, it was like a year or something, wasn't it? Or a couple of months?
Yeah, it was about, I guess, a year or so.
Yeah.
Because I had been to Mexico before then, but at that time...
At that time, you didn't need a passport.
I'm aging myself here by saying this. At that time, we didn't need a passport to get into Mexico. You do now, but... So I had been to Mexico, but that was the only sort of other country that I had been to.
American citizens didn't need a passport.
Right.
Yeah,
Right.
We should clarify that.
Yes.
They didn't need a passport to get into Canada or Puerto Rico either.
Well, you still don't need one to get into Puerto Rico.
Well, yeah.
Because Puerto Rico is technically part of the United States. It's just not a state. Yeah. So I got my passport and you and I were talking about, I guess you were renewing your passport at the time.
Yeah, I was renewing it, yeah.
And I was like, oh, you already have a passport, and you had been so many places, and you were like, yeah, most people here do have passports. And I was like, yeah, most people here don't have passports.
Yeah, I was very surprised at that but then again, you know, now I've lived here for a long time, I understand why, because it's such a huge country. It's like there's going to be a bunch of people who are just like, don't need to go outside of the US because what we've got here is fine for me, you know.
Right. And you know, the thing is I think around the world it is sort of known that Americans don't travel outside of America as much as people elsewhere in the world, really.
In the world, yeah. Because everybody comes here.
And they assume, you know, we get a bad reputation for that as like being ignorant, and I'm totally not trying to say that there aren't ignorant people here who are like afraid of traveling outside of America because of terrorism or whatever. Oh, these other countries, they're just not as safe as America.
And they don't like us and everyone hates us. Yeah, I mean, I've seen that attitude from a few Americans, you know.
Well, yes.
Who are scared to go even to England because they think people don't like them there and stuff like that. And,
yes.
You know, I'll get picked on or whatever,
but it's not just that.
No.
In my opinion, I would say that the majority of Americans don't travel outside of America as much as the rest of the world travels around the world.
Yeah.
Just for sheer price. It's expensive to leave this country.
It's very expensive to leave this country. And as you were saying just now earlier about the gas prices over here, it's easier to drive around, you know. You can get to A to Z. Or
Well,
A to
everybody has
Z.
a car here. I mean, not everybody, but, you know.
Most people have a car.
Most people have a car. And gas is not super expensive, not compared to the rest of the world.
Especially the UK, anyway.
Yeah, so I think a lot of people just opt for like local road trips, and I say local meaning around the United States.
Yeah.
It could
Yeah,
be
I mean,
within
you can
your own
drive-
state or
I mean, Texas, it takes you about 9 hours to get to the edge of, like, the panhandle.
and that's from Central Texas.
That's from Central Texas, too, so it's...
Takes about another probably 9 hours to get to the very tip down at like McAllen, you know, the very, very bottom of Texas, down by Mexico. So it's probably about 18 hours tip to tip. I could be totally off on that. You'd have to look it up. But
for reference, you could fit Britain in its entirety into Texas.
yeah, kind of just tilt it and
it would fit in, yeah.
I think so, yeah. So and when you say Britain, we're meaning just for Americans out there, because like I've said in another podcast, Britain is England to us. But in actuality, Britain is England, Scotland, and Wales. So Scotland's the bit way up at the top, and it goes quite up there. So that's what we're talking about. All the way from the bottom of England,
Cornwall,
to the top of Scotland.
to Land's End, Cornwall, to John O'Groats.
Yeah.
In the Highlands of Scotland.
But yeah, it's just so expensive. You know, a plane ticket from Texas, let's say where we are, to the UK on an average day. I mean, you can get them for a lot cheaper if you're like a savvy traveler and you know how to break up the flight, and you know you can get a cheap ticket from here to there and then a cheap ticket from there to Britain or whatever.
Yeah.
You can find them for cheaper. But if you're just like, okay,
direct flight.
I need to get to London next month, and you only have that amount of notice, you're probably going to spend $1,000 or more. That's just on flight.
Probably more.
Yeah. That's just on flight.
$1,000.
Yeah. Whereas in Britain, you can fly.
Well, you can fly Ryanair from London to Rome for $68. And that's dollars.
That's dollars. Yeah. Yeah, that's just...
And that's a round trip, too.
It's so wrong. And then they also have trains. You can take the
train
train from Britain into Europe.
Yep.
And then, of course, around Europe. Probably you could take a bus, like a mega bus or something, I'm sure.
You could take a mega bus from London to Paris.
Because for any Americans or anyone elsewhere in the world who doesn't know, there's a tunnel under the channel,
the
English channel that goes from England to France. And they've just built a tunnel, and there's trains that go through the tunnel, and then there are cars can go through the tunnel. So yeah, you could probably take a bus for like virtually nothing, I would imagine. Buses in Britain are so cheap. I don't take the bus here.
National Express and stuff, yeah.
Yeah, I don't take the bus here in America, so I don't know. I'm not gonna attempt to say what the difference is, but I'm assuming it's probably but I'm assuming it's probably more expensive in America. I don't know that for sure, but the buses are...
Haven't done the research.
Right. Right. But yeah, so I think that's why. And it's so wrong that you can like just travel from... I don't understand... I'll tell you, I do not understand people in Britain who haven't traveled to Europe more than I don't understand Americans who haven't traveled to Europe.
Usually it'll be Spain if it's anywhere else, you know. It's like you ask the average British person where they've been outside of Britain, and it'll usually be Spain.
It seems like a lot of them go to Turkey.
Turkey, yeah, I mean, because you can get them pretty cheap.
Those are two really cheap places,
Cheap places
right?
to go, yeah. Greece is another one.
Yeah.
And...
all places that would be amazing to go to.
Yeah. I mean, when I was a kid, my first, like, holiday that I remember going on was to Greece.
Yeah.
It was to Zakynthos in Greece.
That's so cool.
And, you know, we had a great time there. And then a couple of years later, we went to Benidorm, which is in Spain.
Yeah.
And the Costa del Sol. And then a year after that, we went to Turkey.
Right.
And then we went to Crete. Went back, it's just like, I seem to remember we went to Crete a couple of times.
Mm-hmm.
I know we went to like Menorca or Mallorca, and that's in the Balearic Islands, which is just off the coast of Spain in the Mediterranean. But yeah, I mean, pretty well traveled as a kid. Well, not so well traveled when, you think about how many countries there are in the world, but
yeah,
it was like, we got out of our comfort zone.
It's funny because when you're reading about the places Britons travel to, it's not just Europe though, is it? It's like anywhere that used to be owned by the British Empire, basically, British people still travel to. So like New Zealand, Australia, South Africa.
There's a lot of, people have family in Australia and Britain. You know?
Mm-hmm.
They have like, people who've emigrated there and live out there.
You have a family friend whose son just moved to Australia and he went to visit him.
Yeah, there's a couple of people I know in Australia.
Yeah.
I mean, who are like family.
Actually,
family
I guess we do too.
Yeah.
No one out in Australia.
I mean, we know a couple of people. I mean, as far as internet friends and stuff go, yeah, I know a few people in Australia.
So that's
They're
funny.
listening, hello, but
That's funny, yeah, because that's another part of the traveling culture in Britain, I guess, to move out to Australia or South Africa or something like that. I guess that's pretty common for British citizens. Like if they're gonna leave their country, they're gonna go to one of those places usually.
Yeah.
I mean, unless they get a job wherever, but
yeah.
Whereas I can't think of anything similar in America. I can't think of specific places where, Americans move there. You know what I mean? I mean, not in the same way.
Like, like pensioners go to Spain.
Right. Well,
Britain,
I mean, Americans move to Mexico, I guess, or they used to.
They used to,
the resorty kind of
type areas, yeah,
towns. Particularly on the coasts, obviously, of Mexico.
Yeah.
But other than that, I can't think of anywhere, It'll be somewhere in America. Like, if you live in the northern half of the United States, like, eventually you might move to Florida or Arizona, something like that. California, maybe, like...
Is usually the one.
Yeah, I can't really think like it's funny just talking about it like this. I don't really think it goes the opposite direction. I can't think of people like, people in the South, like, let's move north. You know what I mean? It doesn't like
let's move up north because it's colder.
No, yeah,
it's the weather.
Not unless you get a job up there and you're transferred and you have to go up there.
Yeah,
people don't. I mean, I guess hipsters or whatever might go to New York City or something like that. But yeah, that's funny. I'm wondering, just to change the subject a little bit, I'm wondering what the statistics are. I don't know if you have this in your research, since you're the research man.
I'll see. What do I have?
About the U.S. versus the U.K. as far as domestic travel. I wonder if we travel around our own country more than British people travel around
I haven't
the UK.
done the research on that, but I think it's probably true. I think there's probably more road trips over here than there are in the UK because, it's funny, we can like go from Central Texas up to the Panhandle without stopping.
Mm-hmm.
Like we can make it like a day trip.
You have to literally stop like about once to get gas. But yeah, if you don't have to use the bathroom, that's it.
Whereas in Britain, people traveling, I don't know, from like Cumbria, which is up in the north of England, down to London, they have to stop. They might even have to stay overnight.
Oh, yeah.
If they're coming down the A1 or something, to London. They'll have to stop. And it's only like, what, a 5-6 hour journey? But, which is like, and there's like, Just because we were watching that documentary, I think it was
It was
Britain's
about the
Longest Road, or-
the motorways.
and someone was bringing something down. Like, oh, got to stop for the night in,
And I was like, they've only been driving like an hour.
They've only been driving like an hour or something, and they have to stop because it's like, oh, we have to spend the night here now because it's a long drive.
That's particularly funny to us in Texas because this is such a big state. It's very, very frequent that we would travel from Austin to Dallas, which is a 3-hour drive minimum.
Yeah.
Depending on where in Dallas-Fort Worth area you're going. Or Austin to San Antonio, which is a lot closer, 1.5 hours. Or Austin to Houston, which is another 3 hours. Very, very frequent that would be a day trip.
Yeah.
You get up in the morning, drive 3 hours to wherever, and then spend your day in Dallas and come back, 3 hours at night. My mom and I actually years ago, if like Paul McCartney or whoever, somebody would come to Dallas and that was as close as they were going to get. They weren't going to come to Austin. We drive up just for the concert and not spend the night,
And come back, yeah.
Yeah, we'd leave at like 4 p.m, get there for 7 o'clock, 8 o'clock show, and then drive back at like...
And that's another thing about people over here. They're in their cars more often.
Yeah.
It's like...
We spend a lot of time in
cars.
cars.
If you get in a car in Britain and, you don't have a driving job or whatever, you have a whatever job, and you're going 5 hours up the road, it's a long trip.
Yeah.
To people.
Because you have that story of taking your gran from Wales up to Scotland, which is quite far. I mean,
it's quite far.
But it's probably about the same. It's probably
it was about an 8 hour.
Wasn't it?
It was about 8 or 9 hours, taking into fact because they had to stop and get on a ferry and come to the Isle of Arran. Mm-hmm. But yes, I mean, her talking about it was just. Her talking about it, she was just like, oh, it was such a long drive. We were driving forever. And then we got to the edge. I thought we were going to the end of the world. And then we stopped and I was like, oh, are we here? And it was like, no, we have to get on this boat. And I was just like, oh my God.
Oh, God.
Yeah.
She was so funny with that story.
Old Molly, yeah.
Oh, she just had me rolling because it was just like the way she told it, and she was really serious about it.
She was serious about it. I thought we were going to the edge. We were driving. And it's just like this. My gran was one of these people that, you get in the car to go to Swansea or something, which was only like 30 minutes away or something,
Mm-hmm.
And we were driving 10 minutes. She goes, oh, are we going to stop for a cup of tea?
Right.
And it's like, we've only been driving 10 minutes. Bloody hell.
Yeah. That's so funny. Kind of going along with that though, with what we're talking about, was that show you and I were watching, what is this Scottish? Two Doors Down?
Two Doors Down,
I don't know if any of our British listeners
Two Doors Down.
Watch that show, but it's set in, I don't know actually where
it's a suburb of Glasgow.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know exactly if it's like Cumbernauld or whatever.
And one of the characters' boyfriends' parents came to like just visit, like meet the parents type thing.
Yeah.
And they were from England.
They were from Yorkshire.
And they were Yorkshire is like northern England. It's like
northern
right
England.
By Scotland, right?
Yeah.
I mean,
yeah. More or less.
Right.
Closer than south anyway.
And they, I mean, I know they're just characters in a TV show, but I was curious how representative that is of just the British population in general, because they had never been to Scotland. They were like, oh, this is your first time in Scotland. Oh, yeah, and they were kind of acting in the show like it was no big deal that they had never been there. And I'm just sitting there watching it thinking, what? Why? How could you have never gone? Like, it's such a small island.
It is such a small island, but the thing is, you've got to realize when, it's people in Texas have never been to, like, Oklahoma. They've never been out of...
Louisiana, yeah.
They've never been anywhere.
I've never been to Louisiana.
Yeah. I mean, there you go, It's just like, you've never been to Louisiana before. What's the matter? It's like 9 hours away,
Yeah.
It's only a 9-hour drive. But yeah, that's the way a lot of people are. I mean, it's like if we moved back to Britain, we'd probably do a road trip around the whole place so you could see everything,
Yeah.
And
we'd need
we need a lot of money for
we
the
need
gas.
quite a lot
Well,
of
actually,
money
I don't know how good, because it's like gas, petrol. It's expensive in the UK, but I don't know how many times you'd have to fill up, like to do like a round trip of the UK.
Right.
With a fuel efficient car, you'd probably only have to do like maybe 2 or 3 times. And I mean it's expensive because a full tank of petrol is like £100.
Yeah.
I think. I'm not too sure.
So let's say you do like to travel around the UK. You live in the UK and you like to travel.
You like to
the
go
UK.
around. You like to go up to Scotland for your holidays and
stuff.
Do
you drive or
do you take the train?
Or do you take the train or do you take the bus?
The train.
Or do you fly? Because it might be like £5 to fly
when
from wherever.
Well, yeah.
Yeah.
When we were moving to Scotland, my first time when I was a kid, we flew from Gatwick up to Inverness. I can't remember how much it was. I was only a kid. It was my first kind of time on a plane. Right.
And Inverness is at the top of
It's in the Highlands, yeah.
Yeah.
Because we were moving to Ullapool. We were going to stay with my nana I think we ended up spending about a few months there. But, yeah, we flew. And it was something like half an hour or something. It's just like, but it would have been like, something like 8 hours on the train. And I mean, we used to get the sleeper trains down.
Yeah.
To like Torquay. I remember from like Glasgow, we'd get a sleeper train. We'd come down and visit my sister in Torquay. And that was, I mean, it was fun as a kid, but it wasn't so fun if you'd just eaten McDonald's.
Oh God!
And the train was lurching and going like that, and you just wanted to steal.
I know people use the train in Britain to commute a lot more. Like,
yeah.
Okay, so we live in Austin, and it's becoming
Central Texas, y'all.
It's becoming more normal. I've seen it on the news, actually. I said it's only about an hour and a half drive from Austin to San Antonio. Okay, so for the rest of you, either elsewhere in America who are in smaller states and can't really relate to the way we drive in Texas, or for if you're in Britain or wherever.
Texas is very vast.
So an hour and a half drive to us is not that big a deal. And I've seen on the news that apparently it's becoming more common for people to live in Austin, work in San Antonio, or live in San Antonio and work in Austin and commute back and forth every single day, that hour and a half drive, which is going to be more than that. I don't want to
traffic and everything.
With rush hour traffic. I mean, it depends on when your work hours are, but you're gonna drive that because in Texas we don't really have. They're working on it at the moment, but we don't really have a great public transportation system. I mean, we don't have commuter rails or anything like that. We do here in Austin, but only within Austin and sort of just the northern suburbs, actually. It doesn't even extend down to the southern suburbs of Austin. So I think they're considering putting in a commuter train from Austin to San Antonio because apparently that's becoming more and more common now for people to do that. But people just drive.
Well, yeah.
And I know in Britain, it would be so convenient. There's been many times that I've gone into Britain and I've arrived in London at the time of morning. Or actually, okay, I'll reverse it. I've been going. My flight has been leaving. I'm getting tongue tied there. My flight would be leaving at a time in the late morning or early afternoon in London so that I was on the train leaving Wales at the same time as people who were commuting into London.
Yes.
If you get what I mean.
Yeah.
So it would be early enough in the morning. I'd go to sleep for the first, because what is that?
It's a 4-hour
It's about a 4-hour train ride.
Yeah.
So I'd go to sleep for the first 2 hours, but then you couldn't sleep after that because the train would start filling up with people who were going into London to work.
Closer to like when you got to like Windsor and Slough and Reading and all
Mhm.
them places, then the people would be getting on and they'd be like, yeah, I'll be there in like 5 seconds. I'm
You
just
hear
getting
all
in
the-
the train,
You hear all the crinkles of the
it's just like,
newspapers. Everybody's reading their papers.
yeah, they're reading their papers. It's like,
You
oh, I'll
smell
be
the
in- I'll be
coffee.
in-
Everybody's got their coffees or their
Yeah.
teas or whatever in their little like.
And it's like,
to-go
you know,
things.
that's how I'd know. I'd wake up and I'd see all the
Oh, we're getting
businessmen.
close.
I'm like, yeah, we're almost there.
But yeah, so there you go. That's people commuting into London to work.
Yeah.
I'm guessing because they're all in business suits, and
Yeah.
I mean maybe they don't do that every day. Maybe it's just for meetings or something like that.
Yeah.
But it's more convenient to do that in Britain than to drive the hour and a half like we do over here. I would definitely prefer it because you can sleep. You can eat your breakfast. You just bring your breakfast with you. You know,
Bring
it's
a banana and a yogurt.
yeah, it's just so much more convenient. I mean, just the traveling culture in Britain is just so vastly different from over here.
And it's again, it's to do with size.
Yeah.
I mean, over here, I think a lot of things were like everybody started doing stuff, you know, like they started putting railroads in, you know, they started putting stuff in, but then people would like veto it and go, nah, the car companies don't like that. They want you to buy cars and whatever.
Well,
you know?
I think it was
And so
just...
some president would just say, nah, forget that, and it would just be, you know.
I don't know if it was that. I mean, we had railroads obviously before there were cars.
Yeah, but
over
then,
here,
then
and people utilized them a lot. But I think once the cars started coming in, people just stopped using the trains. I don't know that it was the car companies or anybody like in particular. I think people just stopped using trains because you have a lot more freedom when you have your own car.
Yeah, that's true.
You're not constantly making stops in towns along the way, or grandma's house is on the way to wherever you're going and you want to stop and say hi, or, you know, you need to pick something up from...
Stopping and saying hi.
Yeah, it's just more convenient to have your own car. I personally hate driving, so I love...
Well, I mean, you know, living in Texas, you would hate driving because you have to drive, you know.
Yeah, I mean, I would die to live in, like, New England, where they do have a similar sort of public transportation system.
Everything is kind of
to Britain.
Yeah, it's all bunched together.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I would personally much prefer that, and I would much prefer to live in Britain where the flights are super cheap if I wanted to go to Italy on the weekend, you know, or.
And you get paid vacation, a lot of paid vacation, but that's for another episode. So.
Yeah. No, that factors in
balance.
Well, yeah. That factors into it though, doesn't it? I mean, you have a lot more time off in Britain, and therefore you have a lot more time to travel.
Yeah.
In America,
It's true.
In America, you don't. You don't get as much time off, so you know it takes a full day. More than that, really, because a flight from Texas to England is 9 hours.
About 9 hours. Or 10 hours,
and you've got to
something.
get to the airport beforehand, and then you're going to be at the airport a little while after to gather your luggage and go through customs and passport control and all of that. So, you know, it does take time, and that's going to be both ways. And, you know, yeah, all of that factors in. It's not just, so the lesson for today, folks, is that it's not just Americans being ignorant and refusing to like travel and explore the world. It's just that, you know, it's not quite as easy for us.
It's not quite as economical now.
Yeah. Costs a lot of money. Takes more time.
Takes a lot of time, yeah.
Mm-hmm. So and plus we have a lot of places over here to explore.
You got a lot of places in your backyard, yes, as they like to say. You know, I mean, you could go to California, you could go up to the redwoods.
Yeah,
you know,
we've
Washington.
got mountains, forests, lakes, rivers, you know.
And it's huge, you know.
Hey, one more point before I know we're trying to wrap it up here. One more thing I was thinking before we started talking. I didn't mention it. Another way to travel around Britain that we don't have anything similar to here. You can travel pretty much anywhere you want to go in Britain via the canals, can't you? The canal system.
Yeah, pretty much, yeah.
Yeah, we don't have anything like that over here. I mean, we have rivers, but it's like you kind of got to just go to places along the rivers.
The canals were man-made.
Yeah.
And they were made
to go to the major cities.
You know, they're made for the factories to put all their crap on and put
I don't know how many people actually travel that way if they're wanting to go to the major cities.
Yeah, I mean, obviously now it's a leisure holiday. People book canal barge holidays or canal holidays, and
but that's
they just
so cool.
And they live on a houseboat, and they just gently go up from A
right.
to B, and they're just like, oh yes, we're in Henley-on-Thames now, or whatever.
So I mean, that's quite different to America because we don't have any.
The whole system of that is amazing too. The engineering and everything.
Mm-hmm.
I think that was Roman. Goes back to Roman stuff,
Yeah.
But then there.
Anyway, yeah.
Anyway.
So we kind of threw that one in at the end there.
Yeah.
if you don't know what we're talking about with the canals, you should look it up.
Look it up.
It's very interesting.
It's very interesting. There's probably several documentaries on it and everything. So it's one of Britain's curiosities.
Yeah.
But yes,
I think we've run that topic into the ground.
We have run it into the ground.
We seem to say that at the end of every episode.
That's our catchphrase. Have we run this into the ground yet?
Run it into the ground. You're sick of hearing it now.
Sick of hearing it.
Let us know if you're in America. Let us know whether you have a passport or not, and where outside of the U.S. you have traveled to, if you have. Or if you haven't, do you travel around America? Where have you been in America? Because I'm curious about that. If you're in Britain and you're listening and you've never been to America or outside of Britain, I want to know about that also. Yeah. So tweet us, Facebook us.
Butty.
Leave us in the comments to the blog on the website.
Leave us a comment on the blog.
Yeah.
www.teeandabuddy.com.
If you enjoy our content, please consider buying us a coffee. It's an online tipping service, and you can just leave us a little tip, and the money that we make from that,
in the blog anyways.
Yes, the money we make from that will go just toward upgrading our equipment and hopefully making this show a better
quality experience for you.
Yeah.
And we're on iTunes, we're on Google Podcasts, we're on Stitcher, Overcast.
Yeah.
Pocket Casts. We're on a bunch of platforms, so you can listen to us wherever and whenever you like.
Yes, and if you don't want to buy us a coffee, which we will not force you.
We will.
We won't.
We will.
We will. Just do us a favor and share this
Share
podcast.
Us.
Help us.
Recommend us.
Right, help us spread
the word.
Yep.
Brothers and sisters.
Thanks for listening. Groovy man.
Groovy.
Bye.
Bye-bye.